Hello again, and welcome back to Year 5 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is Week 24, Day 1. We're continuing our way through the book of Leviticus. This week we're reading chapter 23. You might notice that that's quite a substantial skip ahead from where we were last time in chapter 16. The reason for this is that chapters 17 through 22 of Leviticus comprise what is sometimes referred to as the Holiness Code, the guidelines that are given to the children of Israel on the one hand, and to non-Israelites living among them on the other hand. These are very relevant to a specific event in the book of Acts that we are approaching, so we're going to wait to read them until March when we get to that point in the book of Acts. That's, if you're wondering, in the council in Jerusalem. But for now, what we will see, having jumped forward to chapter 23, are the certain occasions on which the children of Israel were commanded to celebrate a great festival, making offerings and gathering together at the place the Lord would appoint in the promised land, which is to say at Jerusalem, and observing these commemorations in a particular way. It is notable, too, that in chapter 16 we saw the specific details of the celebration of the Day of Atonement, but this week and next week we will see the feasts of Passover and First Fruits, and the Festival of Weeks, and that is Pentecost, then the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement, set out as the central celebrations of the Jewish festal year. So this is chapter 23. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel, and say to them, These are the appointed festivals of the Lord that you shall proclaim as holy convocations, my appointed festivals. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord throughout your settlements. These are the appointed festivals of the Lord, the holy convocations which you shall celebrate at the time appointed for them. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight, there shall be a Passover offering to the Lord. And on the 15th day of the same month is the festival of unleavened bread to the Lord. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not work at your occupations. For 7 days you shall present the Lord's offerings by fire. On the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall not work at your occupations." The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel, and say to them, When you enter the land that I am giving you, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall raise the sheaf before the Lord, that you may find acceptance. On the day after the Sabbath the priest shall raise it. On the day when you raise the sheaf, you shall offer a lamb a year old without blemish as a burnt offering to the Lord. And the grain offering with it shall be 2/10 of an ephah of choice flour mixed with oil, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord, and the drink offering with it shall be of wine 1/4 of a hin. You shall eat no bread or parched grain or fresh ears until that very day, until you have brought the offering of your God. It is a statute forever throughout your generations in all your settlements. And from the day after the Sabbath, from the day on which you bring the sheaf of the elevation offering, you shall count off 7 weeks. They shall be complete. You shall count until the day after the 7th Sabbath, 50 days. Then you shall present an offering of new grain to the Lord. You shall bring from your settlements 2 loaves of bread as an elevation offering, each made of 2/10 of an ephah. They shall be of choice flour, baked with leaven, as first fruits to the Lord. You shall present with the bread 7 lambs, a year old without blemish, 1 young bull, and 2 rams. They shall be a burnt offering to the Lord, along with their grain offering and their drink offerings, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord. You shall also offer 1 male goat for a sin offering, and 2 male lambs a year old, as a sacrifice of well-being, a peace offering. The priest shall raise them with the bread of the first fruits, as an elevation offering before the Lord, together with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. On that same day you shall make proclamation. You shall hold a holy convocation. You shall not work at your occupations. This is a statute forever in all your settlements throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the alien. I am the Lord your God. Okay, so there are a few things that we can talk about. Some of this is somewhat obscure, and it's obscure to me, I will confess, because the way in which this works with the Jewish calendar is not entirely clear. Because Passover doesn't always begin on a Friday or a Saturday, or it doesn't always begin on the Sabbath. And yet, the way this is talking, it associates the first sheaf, the sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest, is associated with the Passover, and it has been associated with the celebration of the Passover from certainly from the time of the temple, and certainly the time of the second temple, because Josephus talks about this and says that they killed the Passover lamb, if I'm remembering right, on the 14th day of Nisan, and then they brought the sheaf of the first fruits on the 15th day, and then counted from the next day the 49, the 7 weeks until the day of the Festival of Weeks, which is to say Pentecost. But again, at least in the modern Passover calendar, the modern Hebrew calendar, Passover doesn't always start on a Sabbath day. Sometimes it starts, I think, on a Monday. There are 4 different days of the week that it can start on. So anyway, how this works exactly is not clear, but it seems unquestioned that the offering of first fruits happened during the Passover. So these are not, the first fruits is part of the larger celebration of the Passover. And what we make of that this is offered on the day after the Sabbath, any Christian's ears will perk up at that, because we offer our first fruits. We offer ourselves in thanksgiving to God as the first fruits of the creation on the day after the Sabbath, every week since the Lord's Pascha, as he offers himself as the firstborn from the dead, the first fruits of life. So there seems to be some connection there, but how it specifically connects to the Hebrew calendar, I'm not entirely comfortable or confident of that. At any rate, what we need to see is that the 6-week cycle with the Sabbath day, that's central. That's what we see at the beginning of the chapter. And then we have these appointed festivals. First the Passover, with first fruits included, and then 49 days after the first fruits, the sheaf. So 49 days after, not the beginning of the Passover, but that point at which the sheaf is brought, which again I think is what I was seeing before. Is I believe they would kill the Passover lamb on the 14th of Nisan. They would eat unleavened bread on the 15th of Passover, and then on the day after that, they would they would offer the sheaf. So then 49 days after that, which on the year of the Lord's Passion, Friday is the day, if I'm seeing this right, Friday is the day that the Passover lamb is killed and the Lord is crucified on that day. Saturday then would be the day of eating unleavened bread, and then Sunday would be the day after the Sabbath, and then 49 days after that is Pentecost, which is how it works in the church's calendar even to this day. But what we need to see is that these days, these festivals are central. No one is to do any work. Everyone is to assemble and celebrate these things, and pious Jews would do their best to travel to Jerusalem to celebrate these things, which is why we see Jerusalem full of people from all around the world at the celebration of the Passover in the New Testament, and at the celebration of Pentecost, which is why it's necessary for the apostles to be proclaiming in every language under heaven the glorious works of God. And then at the end, we have this important statement that you're not supposed to take all of the profit from your labors. If you're a farmer, you don't reap to the very edges of the field. You leave the stuff on the edge, the stuff that, frankly, it's harder to glean and to reap in a if you've got a machine or people going through, it's harder to manage the corners, but you leave that for the poor who can come and gather plenty from that edge. You don't lose much, you save time, but the poor are cared for then, so that no one is to go hungry in the land of promise. Even the resident aliens, even the poor, they are cared for under the Torah. And that's important as well, and we see that continuing in the life of the church. Anyway, that's it for this week, for day 1. God bless you all. We'll see you shortly for day 2.